Welcome to Deep Dive. This is where we take complex topics, break them down, and give you, well, basically a shortcut to being really well informed. Today, we're jumping into something fascinating, customer analytics. Specifically, how businesses are using some pretty powerful data tools to get a much deeper understanding of their customers. Yeah, so our mission, our goal for this deep dive, it's pretty clear. We're tackling three main things. First up, how companies track their revenue changes, year after year. Second, we'll look at a really smart way to group customers using something called a four-quadrant approach. And finally, we're building out a full RFM model that's recency, frequency, monetary for customer value. We're not just going to tell you what these are. We want to explore why they matter so much for businesses and critically what it all means for you, the person actually buying things.
Exactly. And the material we're working from today, it's based on these practical Power BI lab exercises. They're great because they really cut straight to the chase. They show off these powerful analysis techniques without us getting bogged down in all the data prep that honestly takes up most of the time in the real world. So yeah, it lets us see the strategic insights, the end game, you could say.
That's a great way to put it, the end game. Okay, so let's unpack it. We'll start with that first core lab, the one focusing on comparison indicators. Basically, how businesses check their financial pulse year after year.
Seeing the shifts year over year revenue analysis.
All right, so this first analysis, it helps build these essential comparison indicators. Think of it like a business looking back at how it did, specifically calculating things like total revenue, then YoY total revenue year over year, that is, and finally that YoY total revenue ratio.
Right. And the key question is why these specific calculations? Well, YoY total revenue isn't just this year's number. It immediately gives you that direct sort of apples to apples comparison to the same time last year. Then the YoY total revenue ratio, that actually quantifies the change. It tells you, is it up, is it down, by what percentage compared to last year. It's just fundamental. You need this to gauge if you're actually growing or maybe shrinking.
And the way they visualize this, it's really quite compelling, isn't it? Because you grasp it so fast. The lab shows setting up a simple table, year, month, total revenue, the YoY figure, and that ratio. But the clever bit is the automatic conditional formatting on that ratio column. Positive growth just pops out, maybe in green, negative numbers, the dips, they might be in red or orange. It's instant. You just see it.
Immediate visual cues. And what's fascinating is how the lab builds on that. It doesn't just stop at the table. It uses a chart, like a combined line and clustered column chart. So you have total revenue as columns for each month, maybe different colors for 2013 and 2014. And then overlaid, you've got the YoY total revenue ratio as a line, maybe a red line. This combination is powerful because you see the actual money, the revenue figures, right alongside the trend, the growth or decline rate. Plus, turning on data labels means all the key numbers are right there. Super intuitive way to see performance across time.
Okay, so translating that, what does it mean for you? Well, imagine you're managing a product line, right? Dashboard like this. It tells you instantly, month by month, are you hitting last year's numbers? Are you growing? It's just a really quick, effective way to spot those trends, react fast, celebrate the wins, or, fix problems before they get big.
Exactly. It drives action.
Mapping your customers' four-quadrant distribution.
Right. So once you've got that handle on your year-over-year performance, the next big question for any business is, well, who are our customers really? And that leads us straight into the second core lab. This one explores a really neat technique called four-quadrant distribution. It's all about visualizing customer groups, and it brings in some cool external tools for Power BI too.
Yeah, segmenting customers effectively is, well, it's a constant challenge. And this four-quadrant chart, which interestingly you can get right from the Power BI AppSource marketplace, it offers a really elegant way to do it. You plot customers based on two key things in the lab's case. It's member count on the x-axis, the horizontal, and per capita spending on the y-axis, the vertical. You can even layer more info in, like making the dot size reflect total spending, or using city-county as a color legend. Adds depth.
And the labeling of those quadrants, that's where it gets really, really useful, I think. The lab suggests naming them strategically. Things like high member high contribution, low member high contribution, low member low contribution, and high member low contribution. It just immediately clicks. You see where different groups fall, turning complex data into, well, strategic buckets.
Absolutely. From a strategic view, doing this kind of categorization is frankly essential if you want to tailor your approach. For instance, that low member high contribution group. Those could be your VIPs, small group, but hugely valuable. They need special attention. On the flip side, high member low contribution, lots of people, but they don't spend much. That's a different puzzle, right? Maybe you need to engage them more, upsell something. Interestingly, the lab analysis actually shows some VIPs starting out in the low member, low contribution quadrant. Now, that's an insight that makes you go, what's happening there? You'd want to investigate that journey.
Yeah, definitely. And the lab also shows how to make this interactive, which is key. You can add a slicer, like a filter, for member type. So you can click VIP member and see just their distribution across the quadrants. Then click general member and see how that looks. Plus, you can add other visuals alongside it, like a map showing member count by city county using bubble sizes, maybe a pie chart breaking down member types, and a big card showing the total spending.
Right.
Like the example had $785 million total. Gives you that complete picture. Oh, and a really crucial practical tip they mentioned, fix the axis ranges. So when you filter, the scale doesn't, jump all over the place. Keeps comparisons reliable.
Good point, yeah. Consistency is key for comparison.
So thinking about the practical side for you, the consumer,
Mm.
how does this affect you? Well, think about the loyalty programs you're in or those targeted ads you see pop up. Companies are using exactly these kinds of methods to figure out which bucket you fall into. Are you a high member, low contribution? Maybe they'll try to tempt you back with an offer. A low member, high contribution. They'll want to reward you, keep you happy, keep you loyal.
It drives personalization, essentially.
The RFM Deep Dive Understanding Customer Value.
Okay, now we get to the most detailed part, but I'd argue maybe the most insightful bit of this deep dive, the RFM model. That's recency, frequency, monetary customer value analysis. This is where businesses really start digging into the nuances of customer behavior to predict future value.
Right, RFM. It's built on three core pillars, three questions, really. Recency. How recently did a customer buy something? In the lab, we calculate that using time interval from now. Then frequency. How often do they buy? We track that by counting their order numbers, basically the total transactions. And finally, monetary. How much have they spent in total? That comes from their contribution amount. Calculating these three for every single customer gives you this really powerful kind of multi-dimensional view of their value and how engaged they've been historically. But the real strategic power, the bigger picture here, comes when you segment customers based on these RFM scores, usually compared to the average. The lab actually guides you through creating 8 distinct segments, everything from one important value customer right down to 8 general churn customer. And this level of detail, this granularity, it's so crucial for managing customer relationships because, well, each segment needs a totally different approach. Your important value customers, top tier, you treat them like gold. Important churn customers, those are high value folks you're about to lose. You need an urgent plan to win them back.
And visualizing these segments, that's where it gets really powerful again. The lab uses things like area charts for R, F, and M individually, so you can see how each metric is distributed across those 8 customer groups. Then they use a cool tile style slicer for the member value RFM. Lets you just click on a segment, say important churn, and filter everything else to see just their details. But the matrix visual, that's like a superpower table, is maybe the clearest. It lays out key numbers, count of member ID, how many people are in the segment, count of order number, how many orders they place, bonus points, total contribution amount, purchase quantity, all broken down by those 8 segments. And again, like before, conditional formatting, those data bars make it super easy to see at a glance, like which segment spends the most, which segment has the most people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But something that's absolutely foundational here, something the lab really stresses, is setting up the data relationships correctly in the background, in the model view. That member ID in the new RFM table you create, it has to be linked properly to the member ID in the original member transaction details table. If you don't make that connection, Power BI it can't combine the data correctly. Your visuals won't work. Or worse, they'll show completely wrong information. It's the plumbing behind the scenes, but it's critical for reliable analysis.
Gotcha. So the plumbing needs to be right. And then finally, to really bring this data to life, make it dynamic, the lab uses a scatter chart, but with a twist, a play axis based on month. So you can plot, say, average purchase quantity against average contribution amount, maybe looking at different product names. Then you hit play and it animates. It shows you how product performance and buying patterns shift month by month over time. It's just a really dynamic way to see, which products are taking off, which are fading, maybe specific items surge in certain months among certain customer groups.
Very cool. It tells a story over time.
Exactly. So, bringing it back to you, the consumer, how might you see this RFM stuff in action? Well, this kind of deep analysis. It's the engine behind those personalized product recommendations you get online. It helps businesses guess how likely you are to stop buying from them to churn, or how valuable they think you'll be over the long haul. It really is the sophisticated system behind a lot of the personalized marketing that's designed to keep you hooked, or maybe win you back if you've drifted away.
It's trying to predict your next move, in a way, connecting the dots and final thought. So if you take these three labs together, they really show the whole journey, don't they? From just raw transaction data, numbers in a database, all the way to these really actionable insights about customers. Now, it's true, the data we looked at in these labs was unusually clean, which is, a bit of a luxury. It's so important to remember that in the real world, a huge amount of effort, often the majority of the time, goes into just cleaning and preparing the data before you can even start making these cool charts. But understanding the why behind each analysis, why track UI growth, why segment customers this way, why build an RFM model, that understanding is just as vital as knowing the technical steps.
That's such a good point. It really does show how data analysis isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about transforming them into, well, strategic intelligence. It lets businesses make smarter choices, and it all comes back to these basic ideas: measuring performance, segmenting your audience, and predicting future behavior. But, given how complex people are there common mistakes or like misinterpretations that businesses should watch out for when they start using these models?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. A common pitfall is relying too heavily on just the historical data. The model says X, so we do Y, but you have to factor in external things: market changes, competitor actions, even direct customer feedback that the model might not see. Another one is setting up these segments and then just forgetting about them. Customer behavior changes. People move between segments. So you have to constantly reevaluate, retune the model. They're incredibly powerful tools, yes, but they need that continuous human oversight, that critical thinking and adaptation. They're not magic boxes.
Right, they need context and constant care. That makes a lot of sense. So, final thought then, for you, our listener. Next time you get that perfectly targeted ad or an exclusive offer just for you, or you just wonder why some product seems to be following you around online, remember these layers of analysis. Remember the effort that likely went into figuring out your potential value, predicting your next purchase, understanding your preferences. It kind of raises a big question, doesn't it? In a world where companies know so much, potentially, about our buying habits, how does that shape our own awareness? And maybe even our control over our identity as consumers? Something to think about. Outro. And that wraps up our deep dive into customer analytics with Power BI for today. We really hope you've got a clearer picture now of how businesses are using data to, well, unlock customer secrets. Until next time on the deep dive, keep exploring, keep learning, and definitely keep asking those insightful questions.